What does it mean to be evil? A fencing master once asked, "If I study fencing for 2 hours every day, how long will it take me to become an expert?" The master's reply was, "It will take 5 years." "If I study for 4 hours every day," the questioner continued, "then how long will it take?" The master's reply was, "It will take 10 years." "But if I practiced as hard as I could for 8 hours every day," the questioner persisted, "then how long will it take?" "In that case," replied the master, "it will take a lifetime." This story seems contrary to reason, for the more you practice, the faster you should become an expert. But in this story is the essence of the Jodoshinshu teachings. During his lifetime, Shinran Shonin was looked upon by his disciples as being a saint. There is a record of his direct disciple, Reni, having said that Shinran Shonin was the incarnation of a bodhisattva. This is how Shinran was evaluated by others. But how did Shinran evaluate himself? In a poem written when he was over 80 years of age, Shinran wrote, "Though I rely on the true teachings of the Pure Land, the true mind is difficult to acquire. I have an ignorant and insincere body, and am absolutely without a pure mind." Can there be a greater difference in how the same person was evaluated? His disciples considered him to be a saint. He considered himself to be a hypocrite. It is impossible to reconcile these two attitudes unless we understand the standards that Shinran Shonin set for himself. The fencing master considered that a person who was willing to spend only 2 hours a day in practice would not have very high standards, and could thus easily convince himself that he was an expert in only 5 years. If the student was interested enough to practice 4 hours a day, however, his standards would undoubtedly be much higher, and at least 10 years would be required before he would be satisfied. But if the student was earnest enough to practice 8 hours a day, he would never be content with his fencing ability, even if he won all the tournaments he entered. Similarly, because Shinran Shonin's conduct exceeded the standards Reni had set, Shinran Shonin was a saint. But Shinran Shonin's conduct was far below the standards he set for himself, and the more Shinran Shonin approached his already high standards, the higher he saw that they could be set. Although people looking at Shinran Shonin could see him growing morally and spiritually, he himself felt that in comparison with his constantly rising standards, which always rose faster than his attainments, he was falling behind, and thus his sense of evil, his consciousness of imperfection, increased. The reason we do not sense our evil nature as strongly as Shinran Shonin did is that we are not as severe with ourselves as he was. The more severe we are with ourselves, the greater will be our sense of imperfection, or evil. The sense of evil, or sin, in Jodoshinshu is quite different from sin in Christianity. According to Christian dogma, man is born in sin. In Jodoshinshu, however, this sense of imperfection, or evil, develops only when we strive to improve ourselves.